Hi and welcome to the OCR Review, a podcast that covers all things OCR from all around the world.
The first truly international OCR podcast. We are from the UK, living in Asia and following the US racing scene to bring you a holistic overview of what's going on in OCR globally. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the OCR Review. I am delighted today to be joined by Becky Rendell of Team Nuclear Phoenix. Welcome, Becky.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. And I'm especially excited to chat today because Becky has kept on popping up all over my social media newsfeed recently as one of the few people who actually seems to have had a chance to race this year. So I'm incredibly envious and I'm excited to dig into, you said it's been 11 races you managed to get to this year?
Yeah, there's some things still exist out there. I've just been looking for them and going out and doing them, even if they're far away. And then of course there's been some virtual races that I've done as well. But yeah, 11 actual races, and only one of those was before lockdown. So
wow,
I mean, some of them are very, very short races, but I'm counting them anyway because I love racing.
Oh, 100%. I'm at a full count of 0 so far this year. So yeah, I mean, 11 actual races is pretty insane.
I mean, they're very different, but it still gives you that's something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And somewhere to kind of channel your training and your focus into. So super excited to dig into that for today. But before we kick off, I thought we'd maybe start with a little bit about you. So Becky, you're part of the Nuclear Phoenix OCR team. Tell us, how long have you been doing OCR for?
I think this is actually my 4th year, and I've been with Phoenix pretty much the whole time since I started. Yeah, I started out just by sort of looking at races and thinking, oh, I want to do that sometime. I think I'd enjoy that. And then I ended up looking at it for a long time and not actually getting around to doing it because of the various things. And then I suddenly did, and I've been doing it a lot ever since. Yeah.
That's amazing. And what kind of put OCR onto your radar? Was it through friends? Were you a runner already? How did you kind of discover the sport?
Yeah, well, I grew up doing running and gymnastics since I was like 3 and 8. So I've always been interested in things like that, and doing outdoor adventurous activities and things. But when I was studying, so a friend of mine ended up not being able to do a race and was offering, does anybody else want to do the race? And I thought, yes, I do. I really do want to do one of those races. And I hadn't before because they were too expensive, or I didn't know anything about it and no one was going to do it with me. And then that opportunity came up. And so I thought, yeah, now I will actually give that a go. And so I did. And then I thought, yeah, I really want to do more of this. Volunteered at a few events so I could get some free tickets because I couldn't really afford them, and then ended up doing them quite a few months later. So it was kind of planned. I like to plan things. I like to think about them before I do them. So I kind of had it in mind for a while, and I thought that I would like doing it because of the background of the sports I did growing up and things. And then got hooked.
That does seem to be the way that people who stay in the sport, either they kind of had a running background and so it seemed like a natural transition, or they've come at it from somewhere maybe a little bit different with an interest or a bit of enthusiasm, do one race and that's it. They're like, yep, this is me, I'm in.
Yeah, I think anyone that likes a challenge really will enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was the same. I kicked and screamed and pushed against my husband, who tried to sign me up for my first race for a good kind of month or so. I was like, no, I'm not interested. My background was more kind of dance and cheerleading, and I was like, it's just not for me. I go for a casual 5K, but that's it. And yeah, first race, never looked back.
Good. Yeah, I also did cheerleading for 5 years, so the two sports do go well together, I think.
I think so as well. People always don't seem to fit the two together, but I think because you have to build a little bit more kind of upper body strength, muscle endurance, just overall endurance as well. I think it kind of naturally lends itself. You have to be a little bit more aware of your body, where it's placed in space, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Sort of timing on things, and also training's hard work. Yeah, and you got strength and mobility and endurance as well. Those routines are long.
Yeah, yes, also true. So, exciting to hear that it's a fellow cheerleader in that case. So, not that I've done any since I left the UK, but I was a big fan. Yeah, big fan before there. But I can see how gymnastics as well would be quite a natural crossover. What was your main style in gymnastics?
Well, I did it for about 15 years, just until I went to university, and then I started cheerleading, so kind of carried on a bit. But I did a range of things, like started off doing artistic, like most people do, like you see in the Olympics, and then I did quite a lot of team gym, which is a team version of gymnastics where you do tumbling, a floor routine, and trampette vault and trampette. Did that for a few years, and we competed like that with my club. Did a little bit of sports acro, but nothing very serious, and then ended up just doing kind of floor and vault mainly until I went off to university because I couldn't be dealing with beam anymore. Yeah, I did that for 15 years, and that took up a lot of my free time growing up. But yes, hopefully I still have some of those skills left. But I think it's a really good basis for training your body generally, and also developing some of the more psychological skills that allow you to work hard and be determined in other sports as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can see the crossover there. And I imagine that some of the obstacles as well, and I know certainly for myself, even still, if I hit a balance obstacle and it sends me into a panic, whereas, if you've done many, many years on the beam, that's probably like, yes, I've got this one in the bag.
Yeah, people say I should be good at balance, and I also do slacklining, so I am good at some balancing. But it doesn't always work. Anybody can make a mistake on a balance obstacle, as I've also felt before. So yeah, it's good training. Yeah. Hopefully it will work out for me in my favor at the next race, but we'll see.
I hope so. Cool. Okay, so you've started off and you've mostly been doing more kind of gymnastics and outdoorsy things. You've had that kind of one pivotal race that fell into your lap kind of by accident. Which race was it for you that got you hooked on the sport?
Well, the first one I did was the Nuts Challenge, and then I did one which is in near Dorking, and I did that for quite a few years in a row after that. 1 laps, 2 laps, and 3 laps. I've never done the real endurance ones like some of the other athletes in the UK, and that's really impressive. I don't know if I could handle 4 or even 5 laps of nuts. It really hurts my body. But then I did another one called Judgment Day, and that was really, really cold. It was in February, and after that, I thought, yes, I do want to do this. I quite enjoyed that. And then I sort of started looking into doing different ones, and then I joined the team, which are based out of Nuclear Races, and so I always do their events, and they're probably my favorite. But I've done a lot of different race events now, I think. Of course, Spartan, which you enjoy. I don't do that one so much. Last year I focused on toughest race in Europe.
Okay.
Which suits me a bit better.
Yeah, and I think that's the fantastic thing about being in Europe is that you have access to a lot more race brands than we tend to see out here in Asia. Predominantly the market is dominated by Spartan, which I love. But this year Tough Mudder was looking to enter Singapore, so we were like, oh, we might get a chance to do that. There's a couple of more Asian-based brands, and as you know, every OCR race has kind of a different personality and a different profile. So I'd love actually to hear a little bit about Nuts. So you said that one's based on laps?
Yeah, they have. It's quite like I don't know, some people might call it an old school OCR. There's lots of natural terrain obstacles, through the rivers over logs and things. But they've been developing the kit there more and more, so it's getting more and more technical. But they have one in the summer and one in the winter. And I remember one year, the winter one, it was when we had a big storm, and there's a picture of me walking on the ice, like I'm like standing on the ice. It's fantastic, and it was very, very cold. I did 1 lap that time, which was 7K. But yeah, I haven't done that one recently. I probably should go back and do it as it was one of my firsts. But yeah, I like to try new ones. And like you say, there's lots of different brands, and I still haven't tried a lot of them in Europe. Yeah.
That sounds insane. Like, I've done a couple of cold races since getting into OCR, but I must admit, I do love being out in the tropical heat here. So.
Yeah, I think, I work in extreme environments, like in research, and I really enjoy studying the heat. But I think my first love was probably the mountains. I used to go skiing every week and then every year and stuff. But the cold has certainly been something that I've kind of been used to as well, doing some research in that area, like cold water immersion, and just getting cold in races. But I haven't really done a lot of the extreme races. You know, it's kind of all relative to the UK mediocre weather. Yeah, so it's not really that cold, especially in the south. I'm literally right on the south coast of the UK, so closer to France than London. It's not that cold here.
Oh, well, still, I mean, you get to experience a variety of climates, and that's pretty cool. I mean, I've never done a race where I've been walking on the ice, although, you know, snow in Tahoe last year was pretty epic for me. So
yeah, I remember watching that and thinking, wow, this is the biggest obstacle here, isn't it? The weather.
Yeah, I often think that's kind of the obstacle that no one talks about, is that actually sometimes the weather and the terrain can be such deciding factors in your race experience.
Yeah, and it surprises me sometimes how little people think about it, or at least not until the last minute. Some people are really well prepared with their kit. I remember doing a race called Monster Race, which was in February in the UK, and it was just starting to snow as well. And this is in the south, so it wasn't even that bad. And I had like my neoprene on, you know, gloves, vest, socks. And it was about 10K, and I think only like a couple of women finished it, and not very many men either. And they had to stop the race, and that was actually sadly the end of that race series, because a lot of things went wrong. But I was surprised to see the number of people there who weren't very prepared, or, you know, if they go to a hot race or a high race, you don't really think about that. But you see that in all sports, you know, you see that even at high level athletes doing that. So I think it's good that, you know, everyone sort of knew that, you know, with Tahoe and stuff, it's high and it's whatever. So people do seem to prepare for it if they can, but of course, like, a lot of people can't, and that's going to be quite different next year, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if Abu Dhabi happens, then yeah, it'll be a whole new kettle of fish. So we'll wait and see. I'm excited for it to be in a sandy area, so I'm like, yes, let's bring everyone over here.
Yeah, I love running on the beach. I live by the beach here, and actually one of the races I did last year, toughest race, which was in Copenhagen, where it's only 8K that race. Which I quite like that distance. About 5K of it probably was on the sand, and I made up a lot of places on that. So I think, you know, you don't realize that there is certainly some kind of technique to running on the sand.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think you've hinted then in that case, so you've fallen into OCR, you've been doing it for 4 years now, and so you're saying that kind of maybe the middle distance around 8K, is that the sweet spot for you?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the shorter end of it probably, but yeah, middle distance, maybe up to sort of half marathon. But I think it's more the duration that you need to think about. You know, it's how long are you out there for, because I get hungry, I get tired, and my muscles get, you know, exhausted. So really, you know, you can have, I remember there was the European Championships last year. It was a pretty tough race. It was actually really hot in Poland, and that was about, I think it was maybe 18K, but it, you know, there was a cutoff of about 4 hours, and the obstacles were really, really challenging. Not many people finished that either. But I remember being out there for pretty much most of that time, and, you know, that's not how long it takes you to run 18K, you know. So it doesn't really matter the distance, it's more the duration of the event, and that can depend. You know, last weekend I did nuclear races, and that was really, really muddy, and you can't run that fast, and so 12K took an hour and a half, and, you know, there's 100 and whatever obstacles. So yeah, it's less about the distance and more about the type of race and how long it takes, I think. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I'm not endurance, not a long racer, no.
Fair enough. And you've mentioned that you prefer the more obstacle dense, because I think toughest tends to fall into that more kind of obstacle dense category. Would that be right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly value to having challenging obstacles in obstacle course racing, and the terrain can be challenging, and that's quite often what Spartan do. But sometimes I worry that the terrain, they just make it hard for the sake of being hard, rather than being, you know, a good adventure and a good and a runnable race. You know, I don't want to lose the racing aspect just for the sake of it being hard to run up through these things up to here that sting you or whatever. You know, that doesn't seem like a race to me. So I quite enjoy the ones where there's, you know, interesting terrain. You know, like Toughest have got quite a few different types of venues. They have quite flat ones like in Copenhagen and Malmo, but then it's sandy. But then they've got ones like in Oslo where it's through the forest, up, you know, there's quite a lot of elevation in that, including finishing on going up the ski jump.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, and then they've got ones in Stockholm, which I think I haven't done that one, but I think it's also quite sort of hilly and nice, and, you know, through the forest and things. So I think that's a good, you know, it's good to have that variety, but also with the obstacles, you know, I think what I really like about the toughest format is that you get rewarded for doing, you know, difficult obstacles rather than having a penalty or losing your band, which is all quite a negative kind of approach to obstacles racing. I think it's good at toughest because you're kind of rewarded by not having to do this other thing if you choose the harder lane. And yeah, they've got sort of standard obstacles that you see at most of the events, a bit like Spartan does, and that allows people to train for it and things. And I can see the benefits of sort of standardizing races like that. I hope that they keep progressing them. That's the thing that I think changes between something like Tough Mudder and Spartan Race. I know Spartan Race is a lot more competitive, but they don't seem to develop the obstacles as much, certainly not in the UK, whereas Tough Mudder always have new obstacles. They're always big and they're challenging and creative, certainly on your own as well. So, you know, there's pros and cons to all sorts of events. Yeah.
No, that's so true. And I think what I find interesting is that I think with Tough Mudder, you tend to see slightly bigger obstacles where maybe the challenge is more to do with, you know, you've got to be a bit more explosive, you know, you've got to be jumping further or flying a little bit more. And so it's a very different profile to maybe some of the Spartan obstacles where they're sometimes designed more to slow you down. So I think it is a different personality. I mean, I know my husband will always go on about, if you listen to previous episodes of this, he always goes back to the one toughest race he did as his #1 favorite OCR race, for the exact reason that you said, you know, the differentiation and the fact that you could kind of choose, am I going to take the easiest route, the standard route, am I going to go for the hardest option, and then feeling that kind of extra sense of reward and achievement if you're going for the hardest option, that, you know, if you get through it, you're also saving on time as well.
Yeah, and they also, you know, they have a good setup for the elite athletes, and it does actually bring quite a competitive field from the mainland Europeans, which we don't often get to race, or there's not as many competitive athletes that all the other races, because they're more spread out, or, you know, not everyone turns up to that race in the UK or whatever. Yeah,
I can see that. Okay, so so toughest was your main focus last year, is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I think I'm not sure. They usually have about 8 races a year. I had like a elite season pass type thing. I think I managed to get to 4 or 5 of those. They also do a point system. So where you place during those sort of 7 events gets you points, and then those points equate to seconds in a chasing start final. So the final was in Gothenburg last year. It was raining. That was a really nice kind of forest course with some hills, but not like tons. But it was really wet and quite muddy. And so the person with the most points goes off first, and then however many seconds, you know, 5-10 seconds afterwards, the next person goes off, and the winner is the first person to cross the line. So that's a really kind of cool way, you know, they introduce you, they count you down, you go off on your own, and that's quite exciting, certainly to spectate as well as be part of.
Yeah, that's a really fun format.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to do that again next year. You know, I had a pass for this year as well, but sadly they didn't happen. But yeah, hopefully next year we'll be able to go again. Because it's quite easy to get to some of these places. You know, the hardest part is getting to London. When you jump on the plane with your hand luggage, and you know, some of them you can be there within half an hour.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
It's not as hard as it seems, you know, to go to Sweden for a race. Easier than going to the Lake District or something.
Yeah. That's something that I think we've regretted the most since moving from the UK, is that our kind of field of vision, especially when it came to races, was quite narrow to where was local to us, within, you know, maybe a 1-2 hour driving distance. Whereas now, you know, Singapore is very, very easy to fly to places. So, you know, very quickly we'll be like, okay, we'll hop on a plane, we'll get to Manila to KL, etc., and that can take maybe, you know, up to 4 hours on the plane. We've always kind of said, when we go home now, we're going to have such a different perspective to going and racing and traveling in Europe, because actually it's so easy and we didn't take advantage of it when we should have done.
Yeah, I know, and I know lots of other people have things that they can't do that, but you know, while I'm able to do that, I think I'm going to make the most of it, and, you know, be grateful for what I can do, and try and do things that I want to do.
Absolutely.
How long do you go back in the UK? Do you know?
We're out here indefinitely for the time being,
Okay.
so just enjoying being able to explore Asia and the very different scene. But also, you know, it's exciting to talk to people who are having a very different experience, not only of OCR, but also of this year for us. So I think I want to now try and live vicariously through you and your experiences this year. So you said toughest you weren't able to get to. Did you manage to travel for any races before all the lockdowns were imposed?
No, I just did a local trail race beforehand, but I did recently go to Scotland for the UK OSF, the sort of body that we're trying to create in the UK, for the short course time trial Northern Finals. So if you've been following any of the UK scene, that the UK OSF has tried to put on lots of time trials at different training venues. So that's been really good for the training venues and really good for the athletes as well. A bit of competition where over a certain period of time you could go to those and log your time, your best time, and see where you rank on the leaderboard, and then qualify for these two final events. So one was in the north, which was Scotland, and the next one is next weekend actually in Essex. So that's the furthest I've travelled is to Scotland, which is quite far from here.
Yeah, I mean, from the south coast, that's a distance.
Yeah, I did actually fly there. And it was only for a very short race, but I'm glad I went, and it was really, really beautiful there. It was good to meet everyone there and have a go at racing something that's only a mile long. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And actually it was really interesting. I mean, I've been kind of following along a little bit because we've also got some obstacle sport federations that have started popping up around the region here. I don't think they've been as active as I've seen UK OSF being over the course of this year, but it was great to kind of see that, you know, races were still going on, but in more of a time trial format. So maybe would you be able to talk us through the kind of process that you went through for that, because you had, as you mentioned, kind of some venue qualifications and before you went through to the finals. Were they indoor, outdoor, same lengths? How did that process work?
Yeah, so they're all quite different. There just needs to be a short course. So I think the longest duration one I did was maybe like 18 minutes or something, and the shortest one I did was 2 minutes.
Wow.
I think that was the sort of spectrum. I think one place managed to do a course in under a minute, and that was in an indoor ninja type gym.
Okay.
So there was a couple of those types of places, indoor places. I went to one place like that, which was my shortest one. And so that's enabled people from sort of like the ninja community to come in and to OCR a bit more, because of course that's going to be in the World Championships, shorter distance, 100 meters. So we're trying to bring everything together, but also get people to cross over and, you know, try different things. So I went to some other venues as well. I went to Nuts, which I spoke about earlier. I went to the PT barn. That one took like 3 minutes something. That was outdoors. So they're all quite different. And then I think I did one which was really hard on your forearms at Obstacle Play Park. That was quite rig intense, which was a good challenge. And so I only went to about 4 to qualify. No, maybe 5. I think. I think there's about 20 something different venues in the UK.
Wow.
that got involved. And it's really like nice to see everybody getting into it, because I think it took a little bit while to get the ball rolling, but now, you know, for the finals, the Southern Finals next weekend, there's like pretty much everybody's there, and it's going to be really, really competitive. You know, there's 40 men, I think about 30 women in the finals. It's sort of sold out, and there's a junior race as well. Wow. And pretty much everybody that we know in the community that like competing is there, and it's going to be really exciting. And I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen with the results, because, you know, with these short courses and there's penalties and things. And, you know, you can't have any practice, you can't touch anything before, you don't know the course really at all.
Okay.
And, so it's going to be really interesting to see who can adapt quickest or straight away to whatever's thrown at them, and not make a mistake under that kind of high pressure environment. And there's prize money as well, so it's really good that the sport is being supported in that way. So yeah, I qualified at most of those places, and then they had like sort of 3 rounds of qualification. Okay. So if you placed quite highly, then you got through in the first qualification round, and then they opened up entering to people who came in sort of the next set of positions, and then it was open to anybody who had taken part of that, depending on how many people had entered because of the regulations that are in place and things, and the capacity in the day.
And was that based, was that by venue? So each venue could send through kind of their podium places and then next level, or was that kind of overall aggregating the scores?
No, it was per venue, but it was sort of relative to how big the venue was or how many people had gone there. So it wasn't, you couldn't just go to the one that nobody did and come somewhere, relatively high. But so it was all relative to the size of the event.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, if you do more, then you've probably got more chance of qualifying. And some people did go around and try and do as many as they could, and that was really cool. And lots of people went back and tried to beat their times because you could repeat it during this period of time.
Okay.
So it was a really nice way to get everyone kind of back into racing. I wish I could have done more, but there's only sort of so many weekends I can run away. Yeah.
Amazing. So you've had that, you've done the northern event, and then does that feed into the southern event, or are they two distinct?
They're two separate ones. Yeah, we don't have a whole final. They're just two separate events because it's quite difficult to travel that far, especially with any kind of restrictions and things. So yeah, we've done the northern one and the southern ones next weekend, and then hopefully maybe there'll be a second season next year. So wants to fill out the hard work again, and the training venues are up for it. I know some of them are still, running the course so that people can go back and see if they've improved from their training and things like that. But yeah, it's worked really well. So that's cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And can you talk us through the actual course experience a little bit? So obviously with it being a time trial format, I'm assuming that you're kind of going through on your own or in smaller waves. Were there any kind of restrictions you had to follow from a COVID perspective? I've seen some videos of people in other places around the world where they're doing races but still wearing masks, or where they're stopping and they're using hand sanitizer before things. Can you chat to us a little bit about the actual experience?
So it's been slightly different at different venues.
Okay.
Nowhere have I had to do the whole race in a mask, although that was the case for one race. I know that happened recently. Most of the races I've done, you've had to wear a mask in like the village, like the start line area and the finish line area, right up until the start line, and then you kind of ditch it or in a bin or keep it with you. And nuclear races, which was a longer event, which happened last weekend, they had hand sanitizer at all of or disinfectant at all the sort of in like a trough or a bucket or something that you put your hands in before you go on the obstacles, and the marshals were encouraging that. They also spraying down all of the obstacles intermittently, and you had masks at the start and finish. They were given to you at the finish, so you could have one straight away, and no spectators, and no sort of changing or bag drop or anything like that either. But with the time trial venues, some of them were so short that you sort of just did one at a time. So you sort of watch everyone do it. If you're all in the same sort of, you look like a training session, and there'd be a limited number, and you'd sort of do it one at a time in the really shorter kind of ones, or ones that weren't very busy. But other places I've done, there might only be a 2-hour slot, and for the longer ones, we sort of let off at intervals, and I guess they kind of predict who's going to be fastest, so that you don't have to overtake anyone. But if you do overtake, they've got sort of plans in place for that, about how you should do it, and they sort of talk you through that at the start. So yeah, I mean, I didn't jump into racing straight away once lockdown was over, because I wasn't really sure. I remember watching the Spartan Florida race and thinking, oh, no way am I doing that yet, like it's not ready. Especially Florida at the time was not in a good place, and and I was sort of hoping for more of a follow-up, or because how can they claim the success if they haven't followed up with some kind of tracing or something. So I was a bit kind of not up for it at first, but then with these time trials at small events where you could really kind of get a feel for it, and you weren't so reliant on other people doing things right or wrong. It's hard to trust them. So I thought, I will actually go and support some of these race venues and have a go, and I miss racing. So eventually, I'm going to get involved now, and I have done a few. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, did you feel from a competitive sense like it translated in the same way, with it being a little bit more closed door, no spectators, and without, I guess, having like the heat of having a competitor on your back or being neck and neck with someone? Did it still feel competitive?
It's certainly not the same, but it's definitely competitive, or maybe that's just me being competitive. But even with time trial, you know, I want to beat the clock and I want to beat other people's times, and I know what those times are. So I will try and do that, and I'm not, you know, ashamed of that, and I'm sure other people do that too. And that, you know, drives me to train harder and things. But some of the races that I have done that weren't the time trials, like Nuclear last weekend, that certainly felt like a race, because although we were let off sort of one at a time, it was only a few seconds apart. And so as soon as you're up and running, it's back to normal racing. And it felt like that last weekend. I also did another trail race locally, and that also felt like that, but it was a bit more kind of lonely out there, like it was a bit more spread out. But I was glad that, you know, I felt like in that race, I was pushing myself. You know, I knew that other people had started maybe 10 minutes behind me, and I wasn't, and I couldn't see them, but I knew that they would be racing me, and I wanted to be able to get a good position. So it was kind of, it was like a time trial for you know, a 10-mile trail race or something. I also did some road races.
Okay.
Yeah, they started, I did one in London, and we went up in twos, in like a row, and there was a few hundred people at that race, but the thing was, you know, they tried to make the social distancing really good, but what actually happened was, ended up in the queue at the back of my wave, running a lot faster than a lot of people in front of me, and I spent pretty much the whole race overtaking people, like hundreds of people.
Oh gosh.
Which, if we just started in a normal kind of race scenario, I would have been closer to the front, and I wouldn't have had to overtake those people. So that didn't work so well, but that might have just been for the first wave. It might have worked better later on in the race, but yeah, it was still good to get out and race, and that certainly felt like a race, because there was a lot of people around, and I was trying to get a good time. So yeah,
and I guess if you've got those people that you can kind of pick off as you're going, that it kind of feels
exactly, and that's encouraging, motivating as well.
Absolutely. So then maybe let's dig into the Nuclear event a little bit more, because obviously you're part of the Nuclear Phoenix team, but I believe you're also undefeated at Nuclear Rush.
Yeah. I mean, Nuclear races have a few different events a year, so I haven't won all the other races. But for some reason, Nuclear Rush is I always do well, and normally it's in May, and that was one of my, you know, I joined the team at the start of the year, and I hadn't done any races. I did that couple early on in the year, and then like Nuclear Rush was like I guess my first one with the team properly on our home turf, and I won it, and I was really excited, and the race really suited me. You know, there wasn't any giant hills, which I'm not that great at. It was quite tough running, like across the fields through the mud, and I think running on the sand helped me with that. And then of course, you know, there's always, you know, 100 and something obstacles at Nuclear, and some of them aren't very difficult. They just kind of get in your way, like a log or something. But there were also some kind of difficult ones, and they've certainly, because they have a permanent site there, they're always developing new obstacles. So they can get quite creative, and some of them were really quite difficult. And of course, it's the venue for the World Championships last year. So they managed to kind of get some ideas or keep some things from that going as well. So yeah, I managed to. I mean, the women's race isn't always that competitive, but sometimes it is, and I'm glad that I've managed to do well in that race every year. They have a more competitive one, or it's basically the competitive one, in November, and last year I came second, but I've won it before. But I've also come, the first time I did it, it went really bad, and I didn't do very well. One obstacle really kind of got me, but yeah, I enjoy that one because they develop it, even if it's the same land. You know, we run in a different way round and a different part here, there, and everywhere, so it's never really like the same, and there's always new obstacles, and it's my home team, so I think I just really like it, and I do well at it, and it makes me like it even more, which is why I don't do Spartan so much, because I don't do so well. It's a hobby. I'm not. This is not my profession, so I just want to do things that I like doing, really.
No, absolutely. But I mean, I think don't talk down the achievement, because Nuclear has a pretty awesome setup, and I think slightly more technical obstacles on site than you would get at some Spartan races. I mean, I know here we still don't even have some of the new obstacles that were introduced kind of 2-3 years back.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas at Nuclear, we went the last time we came home, which was probably a couple of years back now, and I remember getting absolutely defeated after kind of just going out for like a pay and play session by the super long monkey bars, and it was the first time I'd ever got on a low rig as well. But I think they can be so technical. So I mean, do they include all of those in the rush course as well? Because the long monkey bars are like long.
Yeah, not the whole length of those, but those monkey bars, the gorilla bars they call them, are always in it next to those trenches that people probably remember from the World Championships. With like cargo net and sandbag carry. But yeah, the area of forest there, Nuclear Wild Forest, is a really good training facility, and they've certainly developed it a lot in the last couple of years. They've got this new section with some urban sky obstacles as well, different high and low rigs and things, and the salmon ladder and all sorts. So it's a really good place to train, and I don't get to go there as often as I'd like. Unfortunately, I have a rig in my garden now, so that's handy to train.
Wow. So everyone needs to like go and do lockdown at yours then.
yeah, I got it at the start of lockdown. I was very thankful for that. And then I didn't go away so much anywhere, so I just went for nice trail runs and then played in my garden, and that seems to have carried me through the year.
Amazing.
Cool. But yeah, the other things in Nuclear, it's more the kind of culmination of all the obstacles together, because they have the stairway to heaven there with that. It's quite a wide gap, and I remember at the World Championships last year, I got there and there was some people, some very good athletes, very well-known American athletes that were struggling there, and I used to running at Nuclear. There was, I guess, some advantage of having been on that course before, but that's going to be the case, for anyone that's raced there before, not just the team or whatever. So I did it straight away and carried on, and I thought, this is really tough. Nuclear racing is tough, but I'm glad that I've managed to kind of do a lot of their events, because I think quite often I train through racing, because I actually prefer racing to training, and I certainly have a lot more to do in my training, and my nutrition and all sorts, but I really enjoy racing, and some of that is it's a really specific way to train, I guess.
I feel like more common with obstacle course racers than other athletes as well, that we all kind of get into the sport because we love the sport, and we love like the sense of play that comes with being on obstacles, and if you don't have access to the obstacles to train, then like the racing does kind of become what you're in it for, because that's actually what you love. You're not necessarily loving like going in the gym and being like, I'm going to bench and I'm going to squat and I'm going to deadlift. It's not quite the same.
I've never been up for that, really, the whole gym thing, and probably could do better if I did more of that, but bouldering or climbing or anything, just playing outside, I think is a really great substitute.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've managed to fit a hell of a lot in, all things considered, for this year. Although I guess especially if you've had a rig in your back garden. Has there been a favourite venue that you've found for the time trials, or one that you've been like, I would travel to go back there?
Oh, that's a really hard question, because they're all so different. I want to go back to all of them so I can beat my time. Because you always find something. I'm sure everyone says, I was doing well at the PT barn one, but I fell on my face. I could definitely go through faster if I hadn't fallen over on my face. But I want to go back there so I can do better there. But I want to go back to I don't know. I think it's really hard. All of them. Obstacle Play Park was really fun, just because of the the combination of the rigs, which was really hard work on your forearms. And I'd like to go back there and sort of challenge myself like that again, because that one felt like, I was exhausted at the end of all of them, but they were all hard work in different ways. And I think that one was the most challenging one for me. So I'd like to go back and kind of practice that one again, I think.
And was it just because that one was most upper body intensive, or was the
Yeah,
style of obstacles quite different?
yeah, it was all sort of hanging. There were a couple, maybe a carry as well, but it was all kind of back to back. Other venues had a long run in between. You know, at Nuts there was a run. At Rumble there was 2 800-meter runs, which, you know, it played to my strengths a bit, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. Wasn't challenged as much. Of course, I could have gone faster, and that would have been challenging. But it was challenging in a way that I wasn't used to, or certainly haven't felt a lot this year. You know, that's what it feels like when you get to, especially the European Championships. It's a lot like that, and you just can't even move your fingers because it hurts. You know, and you're so tired in your forearms. So, and it's hard to kind of push yourself like that in training, especially on your own. You know, I could try and do that in my rig in the garden, but it's really, really difficult to get to that kind of state if you're on your own. That's why the classes, you know, at Wild Forest or something, they're really good for that, because, you know, you're doing it together, you're being coached or led through a class, and that's what you want to do. But it's really easy to avoid that if you're training on your own. So yeah, I think I'd go back to one of those challenging places.
Amazing. And if COVID ended tomorrow, like they find a miracle cure, a vaccine, and that's it, we can go back to life as we knew it, what would be the first race that you'd want to go do?
Oh, probably toughest Copenhagen.
Okay.
Yeah, nice, flat but fast but beachy technical race. Yeah, in another place, another country. Yeah. Although I'd really like to go visit some more mountainous, beautiful places, but not have a really important race there. Just sort of enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess striking the balance, and that's I guess what we've all kind of learned so much this year, is that it really does kind of show you, like, you know, if you're still seeking out these obstacle courses and everything else, it's like, yeah, this is a true love.
Yeah, it's important to me, and you know, it's taken a bit of a backseat at times. You know, work's been really stressful this year and really difficult, but I still want to do OCR, so I do make some time for it. But every week it's not top of the list, but I think about it a lot. I talk about it a lot, and I like to be able to find races that I can do. So obviously it does still mean a lot to me. Yeah.
Well, we're with you on that anyway. Like I said, I'm at 0 count for races this year, but still trying to kind of chat to people who are getting a chance to get out there and race, and to learn more about what's out there, so that, you know, when travel comes back, I'm going to be on those planes and checking out all of the different races.
Good, that's exciting. What are you gonna do? Do you reckon? What would you do first? A Spartan race or something else?
In terms of access, that's probably what would be easiest for us here, but certainly going back to the UK, there's been loads of venues that I've been kind of following along and being like, actually, yeah, I want to go back and I want to check out what they're doing. So Nuclear, as I mentioned, we've visited there a couple of years back, but have been kind of looking and watching and seeing as new obstacles are popping up there. So that one's high on the list. PT Barn as well, and then there's a couple of kind of more ninja style or like indoor bouldering type venues too that we'd like to check out. And then I would have to go and do a toughest race as well, because it's, like I said, it's my husband's favorite. He always goes on about it, so I need to check that off the list at some point.
Good man, yeah. Well, we'll go together. We can go through that.
Yeah, exactly. I'll look you up and be like, right, we're coming back to Europe. You've done a few of the races across the area, so you need to come and take us to all the best ones.
Yeah, I'm happy to give advice.
Cool. Well, in that case, before we wrap, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions. I think you've already hinted at the answers to some of these, but we'll see how we go. So first one, carry or climb?
Climb.
Climb, okay. A muddy mile or a sub-10 swim?
Oh, a muddy mile. Yeah, I'm rubbish at swimming, even though I live next to the sea.
No way. You think you have access to practice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay at it, but you know, when I go and do the nuclear races, swim, that's all right. But swimming, no, I'm not very good at actually.
Not your bag. Okay. Oh, okay. I think we've got this one as well. But penalty loop or burpees?
Oh, a penalty loop. You know, you can make them pretty interesting. Nuclear did that for a bit. You know, they had different kinds. You know, you'd be carrying something like this or something else. But yeah, not burpees.
Yeah, no, I'm not in the burpee camp either. Not a fan. Okay, forest or sand?
Oh, well, that's really hard. Sand probably. I love the beach. But running through forests is really nice too.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sun or snow?
What else snow?
Sun or snow? So a hot or cold race?
That's also really hard. I don't know. Snow if you're going skiing, but probably sun if you're racing. You know, I do research in heat acclimatization, so I'm used to 40-degree winters even in the UK.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't research and heat acclimatization. I feel like I'm going to be calling you up in the future and being like, right,
Before Abu
so...
Dhabi, I have a few phone calls, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that race.
Yeah, well, this is true. So, or, you know, start selling off your consultation skills. So anyone who's listening, if you're planning on doing Abu Dhabi next year and you need to get heat acclimatized, or for any expat friends who have just moved out to Asia and are struggling with the crazy heat and humidity that we have out here, then Becky is your girl. Hit her up.
Yeah, I know a thing or two about that, but yeah.
Good to know. Oh, okay. Should we go with bagels or oats?
Bagels. I love bread so much.
All
The
right.
oats if they're in a flapjack.
Oh yeah, actually that's a good point. I always think of oats in
porridge.
like the traditional form, but yeah, flapjacks.
Lots of people have porridge before racing, but I just have flapjack for breakfast instead.
Amazing. I do love a good baked breakfast. Actually, that is my favourite. So, or like a good breakfast muffin or something. Yeah. Okay, track or trail?
Trail.
Favourite post-race food?
Oh, I don't know. Anything you can find. Biscuits. It's really hard to eat a lot after running hard.
Yeah.
I really like biscuits, so probably biscuits.
I love it. I feel like that's a very British answer to go for biscuits.
No tea though, don't drink tea.
Okay, and your final one, top training tool.
Am I allowed to say my rig? Because
you know what? If I had a rig, I would. What have you got on your rig? What sort of setup is it?
Oh, so I've got the gibbons. They're fun to do.
Amazing.
Like monkey bars with things hanging off. I've got quite a few different types of nunchucks because I really, really like nunchucks. There's like a skinny one, a fat one, an elastic one. I've got a few big hoops. I did have like Stairway to Heaven off the edge, but my neighbours didn't like it, so now it's kind of down. I did have a rope climb with some bars on it as well, but that's also not neighbour friendly.
You mean they didn't like having their neighbour like hanging off the tree above them?
Something about privacy, yeah. I was concentrating on training. I'm not bothered what they're doing. Anyway, so that's a really good training tool. But I mean, running is definitely the thing that's gonna make you better at races. So running on some nice trails nearby is probably the best training tool. Yeah.
Fair. Oh, that sounds amazing. I mean, we've got kind of a strange collection of nunchucks and different grips that I hook onto my pull-up bar at home, but hanging off of it, that pretty much gets my knees almost grazing the floor. So
yeah, that's what I was doing. I ended up having more attachments than I had space for on my. I had one of those pull-up mates, temporary ones that you can build, and I couldn't fit it all on, and it in me, and now I have a big frame to hang things off of.
Amazing.
I can keep it.
Cool. Well, that sounds pretty incredible. So I'll finish off by asking, what has been your favourite workout of the week?
Oh, I went back to bouldering this week. I went twice, but I think my favourite is when I went on a trail run yesterday along the Jurassic coast, or the southwest coastal path, which is near where I live, which lots of people enjoy. And I did a nice run there along the coastal path, which sadly is fully into the sea a bit, but it's really beautiful. Some quite impressive cliffs. It's not very high, but there are quite a few ups and downs. So you can get a bit of elevation in there. So I did a run around there yesterday, which was really nice and sunny. And yeah, I think that was probably my favourite training session this week. Yeah, even though next week's race is only going to be about a K long, it's still nice to get out and be outside on the trails and have a nice run. Yeah, makes me feel good.
Absolutely. Oh, well, I'm excited to hear how you get on at next week's race. I guess I'll be kind of following on social media and watching. As you
Yeah,
mentioned,
there's so many great
so
athletes
many people there.
Yeah, and you know, anything can happen in one of those races, and the pressure is certainly on, you know, to not make a mistake, like something like a bounce obstacle. So yeah, it'd be really exciting to see. And it's a shame that we can't watch all the other events. You know, it's no spectators, and you have to sort of leave once you've done, and we won't be able to watch the men's and women's or anything.
Oh, gosh.
Hopefully there'll be some coverage. Yeah.
And do you have any idea about the course, what obstacles you want to face, or you just know the number and how long it's going to be?
They've written a list, quite a vague list of the obstacles. They published that a couple of days ago, and I think there'll be sort of like a briefing video maybe the day before. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much a surprise. I mean, if you've been to the PT barn, you would have seen some of them before, I think, but there's going to be like new combinations and stuff. So who knows? I don't know. We'll find out today, I guess. And yeah, the no practice thing is quite like, you don't even know how heavy is something you're picking up is, or you don't know what it, you know, what it feels like, and you know, so no attempts, no training, no practice really does make a difference. It can be who's the most kind of versatile horse racer as well as strongest or fastest. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or I guess who's almost the most agile and adaptable as well.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It really feels almost like harking back to the old OCR days when you didn't get published maps. It was, I guess, maybe less of a sport, but more of an experience, in that you would encounter an obstacle as you were getting up to it and be like, right, okay, I've got to think on my feet. What am I doing? How am I going to approach it? And then just go.
Mindset's going to be important, you know, reading the obstacle, and hopefully like my gymnastics and like efficiency and timing of obstacles will come into play. Important. Yeah.
Ah, well, I hope so. All the best for that. We'll be watching along to see how you get on and how everyone else gets on as well.
Yeah.
So please do let us know. We'll be kind of cheering from you from here.
No, thank you.
But yeah, so thank you so much for joining. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to shout out? Your sponsors, training partners?
Oh, my teammates, my Nuclear Phoenix team, and the rig I've been talking about so much is made by Oz. Most people know him, and that's really helped me. Yeah, and I'm kind of supported by Zoom Nutrition, and they've been looking after me since February this year, so that's been really handy. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Becky, and yeah, good luck with next week.
Cool. Thank you.